Hey, what is happening, guys, and welcome back to part 3 in our series of learning JavaScript by creating a fun game. So last time we left off, we made our players attack. So we had our two attack functions. Let me refresh this page. And if we attacked, then damage was taken and given from both sides. You can see the numbers right here. And also we created here a time function, so the damage will disappear after a period of time. We also created our random function, which gives a random damage. So as you can see, each time we are taking and giving damage, the player takes and also the player takes damage depending on a random number. So both players can attack now, but let's continue on actually. And also the first two episodes are down in the description below. This is also part of a playlist. And also if you want to know how I set up my environment, not only for this video but all videos for what kind of extensions I use and so far and so on, then I would also leave a link in the description below. So for Visual Studio Code and all the extension and so far and so on. So let's get into the video. In this video, I'm going to start off with styling a bit of this, because in our original, this is our original page. As you can see, we have this animation happening. Also this, let me refresh this again. So the title has an animation and the button has an animation. So let's refresh this again. Okay, and as soon as we get in here, then this all changes. And ooh, we're a bit zoomed in here. So let me just zoom out a bit. Let's completely zoom out. This, yeah, that's good. 175%. Yay! So let's, yeah, I want to first of all take care of the animations, and I also want to include our two dragons. Yo, let's get started with this. So let's get into our CSS, and I think right after our body, yeah, right after our body tag, let's go in here. And let's grab on to, I think I gave it a start game title. There it is. I gave this the Battlegrounds, and let me refresh this again. So it's initially the title of Dragon Scale. So let's grab onto the title and let's go into CSS and let's start styling this. So let's tag on to the ID of game title, and let's go in here. And let's first of all align the text to the center. So text align, not anchor. And we want to align this to the center of the page. So we just type in here center, and there we go. This aligns the text to the center. Now let's also increase this font size by typing in font size. And I'm going to go with 8 RAM. If this is too large for you, because I'm a really large monitor, I have a really huge resolution, it's almost 4K, so you can play around with this, just what suits you in the end. Oh yeah, and for the font family, well, although we already had the font family for our entire body, so this font family, this is why this is taking effect on both the title and the button. Okay, so we're going to leave the font family as it is. And the last thing I want to include here is that animation effect. So we're going to create, actually we need to first of all create a key, the keyframe. So the add keyframe, using add keyframe, we're going to create our animation. And this is a pretty simple animation. We're just going to, just call it, so add keyframe, and we're going to give it the name of anime text, okay? And we want the text to go from 0%, so 0%, and it's going to be with a opacity of 0. So from an opacity of 0, let me go actually up here so you can see what I'm doing. And after that, it should have a opacity, so at 100%, it should have a opacity of 1, okay? So let's include our animation right here in our title. Let's type in here animation. And we're going to choose the shorthand for animation with animation name anime text. Then it should take 3 seconds, and with the transition of ease, and forwards also. So as you can see, this is already taking effect here. Okay, the next thing I want to do is to include it also in our start button. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it into our start button. It's safe, so they both animate in at the same time. But I don't want this. I want the start button to have a different animation. I want it to have 6 seconds. So let's go in here and type in 6 seconds. So it should take more than the title itself, okay? Because I think we have this one done. Let's see, we have again title, we have our animation, we have a start button. Are we missing anything for our start button? Margin, pixel, positioning. Yeah, we have everything that we need for our start button. So let's start styling. Let's start going to the game itself. So start game, and let's start styling this part. So we have a Battleground, which is finished. Then we have a start button. And after that, let's take the container from player 1. So this one right here. We have here the ID, container player 1. So let's go in here, select this one, go back into CSS, and let's say ID of container player 1. And want to give this a height of 300 pixels. Okay, so a height of 300 pixels. A width of also 300 pixels. I managed to go back into HTML. Okay, so a width of 300 pixels. Now, next up, I want to include a background image. So include that for our images. Include this one. Where do we have it? Our dragon. Are you that? No, that's player 2. This one was player 1. Okay, so we need to include this using background image. And we're going to use our URL again. So for the path, we're going to go into our images, go down here and select our image. Now we want to position this. So background position. Let's try this again. Background position, and it should be positioned center. Okay, that's it, save. And it's also for the background size, because this is way too large. So background size, we're going to size it as center. Actually cover, sorry. So cover. Okay, and this will push our dragon into the center of the page and also use it as a cover. Now, I actually want to keep these two separated, so the container and the player character. And I'm using CSS. I should have used Sass for this project because you do have a lot of styling to do. Forget about it. So I'm just going to copy this, the container player 1. And after the container player 1, I'm going to use the, let's go right in here, and I'm going to use the player character, okay? Because I actually want to style this separately. Let's go back into CSS, go back into here where we start player 1 and start dot class, so selecting with the class selector, and I'm going to go up here and delete some of our container player 1. I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to increase the container, so the size of the container, to 400 pixels. So height and width. Okay, so as you can see, the elements are up here: player, life, armor, mana, and this is pushed a bit further down. And also, I want to position the container relative. So position it relative to its parent element, which is, well, for now, which is actually the background, this class of background. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for container player 2. So we could just select this. We could just select these two, go down here, copy them, and replace this 1 with a 2. Okay, hit save. You can see we have now the same image written here. So let's just go into the image and change it. Please don't forget, I'm using a Mac and I'm still getting used to the Mac. So sorry about any mistakes that I make by typing and also the controls. Okay, so we have our two dragons within here and we have everything that we need. Next up, I'm going to work on the background again. And we know that we displayed the background as none initially, but when we click on start, it's going to be displayed as flex using our start game. So let's go up here. Okay, so start button, display inner text, display none. The button is displayed as none, and when we start again, the background image and create background style is displayed as flex. So I'm going to go down here and select our background again and go after the player, copy it in, and just type in justify content as space between. Okay, this just puts a bit of space after, so after it's displayed as flex, it will justify the content as space within. Okay, now for our actions, which are down here, let's start also styling them. So let's take our actions class, go within it and position it absolute. Now, because our container of because our main container, which is the player container, so container player 1 and container player 2 are positioned relative. When we position this absolute, actually let me make this a bit smaller. You can see what we're doing right here. So I'm going to give them the width of 100% of their container. They will be spaced up with a width of 100%, and let's also give them a padding, so between the elements of 1 rem. I'm going to position them to the bottom with 0. Okay, so now they are down here, and actually that's all that I wanted to do. Okay, next up I'm going to take that h3 that we have here, so the name of the player. I also think I give it a ID, so name player, but I don't want to use name player ID right now because I want to style them both, and we know they have an h and they are within an h3 tag. I'm just going to align the text align to the center. Okay, and we're going to have our player 1 and player 2 aligned to the center of the page. Now let's start styling our player stats. So let's go down here and select the class of player, not Euler, player stats. And I think that was player underscore stat. Let me just check this out. So we have, player stats. There we go. So when we're going to style the player stats, we're going to style life, armor, and mana. Okay, so we have a class of player stats, and let's display them as flex, which will then flex them into a column, a row, sorry, and because flex always flexes automatically within a row, although we can specify to flex in a column. Now I'm going to take the player stats and I'm going to choose the allies from it, and let's give the margin right of to rem. Okay, so they're going to have from the right a margin of 2 rem. Now I want to have for life, for example, a green background color, and for the armor another color. So let's go by selecting player stats and li and first child, which will select the very first child of our elements, and let's change the background color to, let's say, a RGBA of 4, 117 and 29 and 1 for the opacity. Okay, so there we have our life. Yeah, it has now a green background color. And let me also give it a bit of a padding. So padding of 0.5 rem should suffice. So 0.5 rem. Let's save this. It's actually a bit too much. I'm going to give it 0.5 left and right, and then I'm going to go back here, say 0.2 rem top and bottom. Okay, so this is a bit better. So top and bottom 0.2, or let's try 1. Because I have too much here on the right side. Whatever. I'm going to also justify just text align. The text align to the center. And this should solve my problem. Yep, that's much better. Actually, I could do this not in here, but in here to all of the LIs. Well, this is not what I want to do. So let's take this out. Take this, paste it in here, and there we go. That's much better. Okay, so let's select armor and then mana. So armor would be the second child. So I'm going to use here nth child. And now we need to open and close parentheses and specify number 2, which is the second child. And we're going to change the color to, let's go with a dark gray. Let's hit save. There we go. We have our armor. And now let's select the mana, which is the first child or the last child. So I'm going to type in here last child. I think I deleted, just deleted everything. So let's try this again. Only need to delete nth child. I'm going to type in here last child. Okay, let's hit save. You can always see this takes effect on the mana, but I want to change it to this color. Let's see. Yo, that's perfect. Okay, we got our mana. Now let's also style our buttons from down here. Now we could get in here and let's say button, because they are all buttons and they have the class of action. So let's take all of the buttons with the class of action. If we take a look now HTML and go down here, we see each button has the class of btn and also action. Now I am going to use images for them. So I want to position the background as center and the background size as cover. You won't see any effects right now because we don't have the images included, but you know what? I'm going to actually comment them out. I'm going to comment them back in when I'm going to include the image for each of the button. Okay, and I also want to give them a border radius of 50%. And also a box shadow of 0, 0, and 5 pixels. And 5 pixels again. And a RGBA of, actually, a dark color, so I want to go 0, 0. And the last thing we need here is then 0.55 for the opacity, and there we go. They have a little box shadow down there. Okay, now I want, when I have them on active, so I activate a button. active. Then I want them to perform a transform and want to have them scaled to 0.95. Okay, so when I push on them, you see that little scaling effect. Now I also don't want them to have any outlines, so let's say outline none. Okay, let's save this, and if I click, actually this shouldn't have any outlines anymore. Okay, let's go back in here. Let's say, now let's take care of the attack button. Now button tag with the ID of attack. Why did I just open close 2 times camel case? Now our attack button will have a background image of a URL, and we're going to go into our images, and then we will find our sword. Boom, there it is. Now when I'm going to comment this to back in, let me select both of them, our sword should appear. I just managed to delete everything. Good job. So let me just really quickly check this. Let's go with the background. Color of red. Let's hit save. Okay. We have our attack, and I want the color of the text. Actually, I'm going to do this up here. All buttons. The class of action should have a color of white. So hexadecimal FFF. And you are disturbing me here. So go. Class of action. Oh yeah, because this is overwriting this one. Oh, it's just action. What do I type in here? Actions. And there we go. Now it's working. And let's also change the color of the text to hash FFF. So we have our attack with the sword in it. We have that scaling effect, and we also, when we hover over it, then it turns black. I didn't want this. Okay, and the damage is up there, but we're also going to take care of that with our styling. Now, next thing I want to style our heal button, our defense, and then the intake. So the intakes within here. Okay, so let's start the next button, which is then our heal. So ID of heal, and it's basically the same thing. We need the image and we need the background color. Let me copy this in here, go into our image folder, and we will select our healing. Where's our healing? We need our cross. There we go. No, that's the dragon. And we need our cross. There it is. There's our cross. And I also want to change the background to green. Okay, next up I'm going to color our defense. Although this looks pretty good, but I don't like it. So let's take the next one. Go down here, the next button, we're going to change the ID to defense. Or defend, because I think I used the ID of defend. Yep, defend. Okay, so let's go back into our CSS. Let's change the image. I believe I used here the item shield. Let's press the S button. Sword shield. There we go. And we have our shield. And let's also change the color to gray. To light gray. There we go. There's our shield. Yo, that's it for buttons. Now let's type in here comment of intakes. And these are action buttons. Comment action. Okay, now let's go to our index. Because you can see when I click here on damage there's a small damage. And I want it to be here in the middle of the page, and you'll see it has a really cool effect. So we're going to take the class of intakes. And I think after we are done with the intakes, I'm going to stop this video and continue in the next one, because this is getting, again, far too large and far too long. Okay, so let's go and take on the class of intake. And we're going to give it a height. So each intake will have a height of 100 pixel and a width of 100 pixel. It's going to be a little box. Okay, so let me actually show you where they are. If we take a look, they're only generated. You can only see them when they are generated. So there's an intake right there. Now I'm going to display all of them as flex. And this time we're going to use flex direction. So flex direction, and they're going to flex in a column. So I want them to flex like this. Okay. Okay, so now let's go with justify. Now I also want to justify the items to the center, and also align the items to the center. So everything will be centered in the, everything will be centered right within here. Okay, and I also want to align the content, not the items, the content, also the center. Now I will position them relative, and I also am going to give them a margin from the top. So margin top of 50 pixels. Okay, so this is actually the only margin from the top that I want to give them, but the rest of the margins should be then auto. So let's go in here and say margin, and all the rest of the margins will be auto. Okay, now from the intakes, I'm going to select, so class of intake, and first of all the class of DMG, which is the damage class. Now I'm going to copy this a few more times, and we basically will have the same style for all four of them. So for the armor, for the mana, and for the heal. Okay, and now I want them to have, again, a margin from the top of 50 pixels and a height of 50 pixels and also a width, so 50 pixels and a width of 50 pixels. Now I also want to increase the font size of them a bit, because as you saw, let me first of all save this. So if I click on attack, there's our small attack. It's way too small, that -2 that you just saw. So let's increase its font size to, let's say, 3 for my display, but you could play around with it. So let's click on attack, and there it is. -2. Now another thing, I want to give them a bit of a shadow. So let's say text shadow in order for the text to pop out more. So text shadow, and we're going to go with 20 pixels, 13 pixels. Again, this could vary for you, so play around a bit with this. 22 pixels and the color black. So let's click on attack. Let's save it first of all. And let's click on attack. As you can see, it has just a bit of a text shadow. Now the font weight, in order to have more of a pop, could be now, let's go with 400. And for me, this is actually okay, but you could change this. Okay, so there it is. Go 2, 2, 5, 5. Let's see the other one. Still on the same player. That's not a problem. We're going to fix that later on. Okay, next thing I want to do is to give it a bit of a rotation. So right now it's on the, it's perfectly aligned, but I want to have just a bit of a rotation. So I'm going to use transform, not origin, transform, and rotate. I'm going to rotate it with -15 degrees. Okay, so let's hit save. Let's go down here, click on attack. As you can see, it's a bit rotated. Now I do want them to have different colors and different shades. So let's take first of all the class of intake damage and class of damage, and this one should have a text shadow of 20, 13, 22. Actually, I'm going to just copy this from up here. So we don't need you anymore. But I want the attack, because the color is red and the texture is dark, I want it to have a white. So let's go with FFF, and actually I'm going to change this not completely dark, but free. Okay, so now if I attack again, hey, something went wrong. There we go. Yeah, I know. So let's attack again. Okay, now I have this white shadow around it. So for the heel, because I just need to copy them, I'm going to use a different one for the heel. And oh, what the hell did I just do? I'm going to copy this and I'm going to change this as heel. And for this, and actually I'm going to leave it also the same, so not dark but white. Now I believe this is all that I need for now. So yeah, we don't have our heel action, so I don't want to style that, because that will be the next one. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. We didn't do any JavaScript, but I do wanted to get this over with the styling because it just looked hideous without it. Okay guys, so hope you enjoyed this. If you did, thumbs up, hit that like button on the video. If you didn't, then dislike it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And if you like this kind of content, if you want to see more, then subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell in order to get notified whenever I post videos like this. So see you next time. Have a nice day. Bye bye.